Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Dustin's Vinyl. How's it going? I hope everybody's doing well in this crazy world we live in. Today, what I'm doing is sometimes I'll hit a thrift shop or a Salvation Army type store. And what's great is you can get vinyl for like $1 sometimes, $2, you can get some really good vinyl. The only problem is sometimes you'll get a great album that might have some scratches on it. So this is kind of a hack trick. If you play the album and you have some scratches on it, get yourself a toothpick. All right, most people have a toothpick, and you want to kind of be very careful. But you'll be able to catch the where it's scratching when you play it, and you kind of watch where the song skips. So take a toothpick and kind of like clean out that groove where you feel the scratches. Clean, just kind of like stroke it in clockwork, motion or whatever. And then after you do that, you spray with a little alcohol, and then you get yourself a nice vinyl brush. You just kind of like, stroke it out. You know what I mean? Get rid of the scratch. Just a little hack tip for you vinyl people out there that might have a scratch record. Nothing worse than a scratch Bon Jovi record or something. All right. Hey, it's good to see everybody. We're having fun. It's good to be back here. I was on the road. I had a lot of record stores. I was on the road. I was in Columbus, Ohio. Had a lot of cool places. I would just shout out to some really cool record stores. Used Kids Records, really cool. And Magnolia Thunder Pussy, as good as the name. Very cool vinyl collection. It was really cool to kind of be in some record stores. Columbus had a great vinyl scene, if you will. So we're going to do the random pull of the day. I'm going to pull this one. And this is actually a brand new album. This is AC/DC's brand new album. It came out this weekend. Phenomenal album. It really, truly is. I listen to this album over and over. I really enjoy it. It's they really went out of their way to make it feel like an old school, AC/DC album. You got the pull out thing and everything, and you got the I love the little inserts, all the fun inserts. And I'm a huge AC/DC fan, and it's so cool that they have a new album. They got the red. I love a colored vinyl. And this album is a lot of fun, man. It has an old school feel. It's kind of a tribute to Malcolm Young, who passed. And they really did a great job in kind of making this album sound like, a real AC/DC album. And if you're a fan of just any of their work, you're going to love this album. And their past, a couple of albums have been great. A lot of times bands, they say, I hate the newer stuff. I enjoy Black Eyes, Rock or Bust. I enjoyed those, and I really love this album. It's got some really good hits on it. It, has just some, just amazing. I guess the big one is Shot in the Dark is the single, and Kick You When You're Down is great. And it just has great ACD anthem stuff. I was on Facebook the other day, and I was having a fight with somebody over music, which is great because I love fighting over things that matter. Not politics, but things like music and sports. So if you want to fight me on that stuff. That's the kind of shit I want to argue about. Not Democrat, Republican. I want to argue music. Some guy was saying that AC/DC is a one-trick pony. And I've heard that a lot. My girlfriend and I almost broke up when she said all the songs sound the same. And I said, okay, they're not the Ramones, okay? And so I basically, I'll fight tooth and nail to that because I think AC/DC, if you're a fan of the guitar, it's impossible not to be a fan of AC/DC. It's Angus is amazing in this, and he plays such good songs and solos, a lot of good solos. And the fact that, here's the deal, one thing we've learned this year is age doesn't matter. So you got Tom Brady, throwing well. We have an old ass president coming up, and AC/DC still rocking, man. This is a great album. Power Up is the name of the album. Get it on vinyl. It's really cool. It has a great sound on vinyl. It really was exciting to really just go out, and 2020 has been a shitty year. It's we've a lot of loss and nobody's working, and then but at least one good thing that we can say is AC/DC has released a brand new album, and that makes 2020 a little bit better. So if you get a chance, get the new AC/DC album. I'm very excited. And so rock on, everybody. Woo! AC/DC is the band. So with that, I'm going to bring in, I know he's a lover of this band as well. I'm going to bring in my buddy, my co-host, Mr. Jeffrey Paul. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Dustin, how was life on the road? How was Columbus?
Life was great. It was great to kind of, be a comic again, performing and, great crowds, and then going to record stores and just kind of, that road life that I'm used to. I got to feel a little bit of it. I only have a few left this year, but it was a good experience.
How much did you miss it?
A lot, man. I mean, it's just like, it's who we are. Once you've tasted it, it's a big part of your life, just going to different towns and entertaining people. And then what I love is partaking of the town. And I usually always go to record stores, and there's like tons of them in Columbus. I was really impressed with their vinyl stores, man. There's everywhere. And they're so cool too. Like, so you'll go in and they'll have like a Kiss pinball machine, and they got like, good music playing, and like, it's just an experience. Like, they really bring back kind of that experience of when we grew up with, record stores. And there's, so it's cool to bringing it back.
I used to spend hours in record stores. I owned a record store.
I still do. It's great. It's like, you should do it now. Just find a record. I just did it before this show started. There's a place called Hi-Fi Records. It's in my neighborhood. It's in the end of Ditmars in Queens, New York. It's a small little spot, and it's all vinyl. And it's like, it's amazing that this kind of art form is still alive, that people just go in, you're sifting through records. It's a good way to spend some time,
And listen, I also got to take exception.
Yes.
Who said AC/DC is a big pony?
I don't want to call them out. But I've heard it a lot, and I understand what they're saying.
No, I don't understand. First of all,
I understand, just like I understand,
really?
I understand why people disagree, but, go ahead.
Bon Scott, Brian Johnson. First of all, it's AC/DC. That both versions are great. Sound nothing alike.
I agree. I just think here's the deal. Like, what I argued was, look, there's two albums that stand out as masterpieces to me with AC/DC. It's Dirty Deeds and Back in Black. I feel those are two perfect albums, and the Dirty Deeds is kind of weird and fun, and that's why I like it. It's kind of their experimental album. And then Back in Black is just, if I had to have three albums, that would be one of them that I had to like be on an island with, because it's just a perfect album. And all those songs sound so different, Shoot to Thrill, Have a Drink on Me, with the most I hate that phrase, but underrated song of AC/DC is, that was such a bluesy sound. But this has some of that in it, man. It has some like, really cool song. Demon Fire is a really cool song. And, AC/DC, they just do such a great job, just like marketing, and then, just the producing value of this is phenomenal. I'm telling you, these guys still rock. And that's what I loved about it, that they squeezed one album out.
They're in their 70s.
And they're still rocking.
Is there like a song that gets you more pumped and heavier than Whole Lotta Rosie?
That's a great song.
Love that song.
My favorite ACD song is probably Hell's Bells. I love that.
That's a great song too.
Just the bells ringing.
My favorite off of Back in Black.
Yeah, and this is cool, man. This is going to be a favorite, man. I'm not saying it's their best, but it's their top 5. I mean, they really outdid themselves. And it's, what makes this album good is I don't feel they put it out because they needed to put it out. If it's a labor of love, you feel that. And it's also like, how like a comic, after years and years, they get better and better with the material. And I think it is, they've played for so long. It's like they're getting, they're still getting better, if you will. I mean, they're still like, an amazing.
What else are you going to do during this time, Dustin? You mean this? If you're going to put out, this is the time to put out new music.
Well, when you're 70 and a multimillionaire and you've accomplished all the stuff, not everybody's producing albums, but I'm glad they did.
But I think listen, these guys still want to be relevant. Brian Johnson almost lost his voice and almost could never perform again.
He's almost deaf. And there's some great interviews on Spotify where they had to do some technology stuff so he couldn't even hear what they were playing. And he's singing to this music that he can barely hear. So,
yeah,
these guys are banged up, man.
Well, it makes sense.
Still rocking.
You know what their encore was for years?
Which one?
For those about to rock. Oh. And you know how the song ends? There's 21 cannons going off. Oh, yeah.
I've seen the concert. I saw them live. They were great.
Right. Yeah. So can you imagine that? Like that's going off in your ear for like a number of years. 21 gun salute, and they just shoot off cannons. They're a band. That's their instrument, cannons. They have cannons.
I mean, yeah, it's that's, you gotta get more rock and roll than that. I mean, you're shooting freaking cannons into the crowd.
No, but what we're not doing today. We're not talking rock and roll on today's featured pick.
Maybe we are.
Well, we could be. We could be, because here we go.
Maybe
You ready?
we are.
You ready for it?
Here
we go. And I'm wearing this hat in honor. We are going to be
this
talking
hat in
about
honor. Yeah, and this Adidas.
Yeah, very subtle reference there, Dustin Chafin.
Yes.
Very subtle reference, yes. And if you haven't picked up the clues yet, we are talking about Run-DMC's third album, Raising Hell. There it is.
Raising Hell.
Dustin Chafin has Raising Hell. This came out all the way back in 1986. That's how long ago.
That's a long time ago, bro.
Last time the Mets won the World Series. Exactly. Produced by really, he was kind of hands-on a little bit. Russell Simmons and a young upstart named Rick Rubin. Okay.
Rick is the best.
He is. And when you listen to this album, you can hear a lot of Paul's Boutique Beastie Boys in this album.
Sure. Absolutely.
What's interesting about this album is just a couple of facts before we start talking about the tracks. It is the first platinum and multi-platinum hip hop record. It only peaked as high as number 3. I thought this, with the amount of hits on it, there were 4 major hits off this album. I thought it would have been a number 1 album. I was mistaken. It was
people are racist,
They were racist. But the hits are huge, man. Like My Adidas, Walk This Way. The first mashup between rock and rap. You had Tyler and Perry actually singing on it. They didn't sample. They re-recorded it. They sang. You Be Illin' is on this one, and so is It's Tricky. Those were the 4 major singles, all huge singles. But let's talk about the tracks, Dustin.
Yes, go ahead.
And what was cool about it was the first track was Peter Piper. And there was a reason why they went with this as the first track, and the title of the song is because, remember, it's 1986. Rap is kind of in its newest stages. And rock critics and pop critics used to refer to rap as nursery rhymes. So this is kind of like Run-DMC saying, all right, a little fuck you to them about that. It's not a nursery rhyme. And they picked Peter Piper because it was the name of a
Were people
nursery
really saying that? I had no idea.
Yeah. I remember. Well, this is around the time that I had my record store. I had my record store a couple of years earlier. I was just getting out of college in '86. But that was always like the thing about hip hop back then.
People just said that, it's like nursery rhymes.
It was kind of dismissed. You
really?
know?
Okay.
Yeah. Because remember, at that time, you also had groups like Houdini. They were kind of big, and Public Enemy changed the game because they became more political. And the last track on this album, you could kind of see where Run-DMC is going, where they're also going to become a little political. And that was the song, what was it? Proud to Be Black. That's the last song on it. And they wrote this because there was a time where things were just starting to change, and things, you start to see more of a pro-black sentiment with Public Enemy. And, they're really not a political group. They rap about things like Adidas. Okay. They talk, they mashed a lot of, they talked a lot of positivity. Not a lot of cursing in their songs, although they drop a motherfucker in this album as well.
It's important. You got to drop something.
I dropped something. The second type song on the album is my favorite. It's Tricky.
That's a good one.
And this was sampled off of from the Knack's My Sharona. You remember that song?
Of course.
Yeah. And if you ever watch the video, it's an insanely great video. Penn and Teller in it, and there's high production on it. And if you listen to the song, I pick up it's kind of like an anti-drug song, because one of the lines that stuck out to me was, they offer dope and lots of coke, but we just learned to leave it alone. Whether they really believe that or not, I don't know about that, especially Jam Master Jay. But
he did some coke for sure.
He did some coke for He did a bunch
the
of
80s,
shit.
Everybody did coke. Are you kidding me? Come on.
Okay,
Debbie Gibson did coke. It was the 80s.
Thank you, Gordon Gecko over there.
What happened?
I called you Gordon Gecko.
Gordon Gekko.
Yeah, come on, Wall Street reference. You ever see that movie?
Got you. Sorry.
Yeah, because everyone did coke.
Yeah. You're right.
I went a long way for that joke. It wasn't worth it.
It's hard to hear sometimes. It's Zoom. Didn't mean to step on your punch. Keep going. Whatever. You're doing great, buddy. Keep going.
Okay. And then now look, the third song, My Adidas, Dustin's Adidas. Okay. It was smart because it got the group a commercial endorsement. They were able to make a little bit of money on it. And that was definitely all Russell Simmons' idea. Okay. And you know what the funny thing about, if you remember back in the day, Dustin, Adidas wasn't the most popular brand. You still had Reeboks that were bigger. Fila was bigger.
Reebok was the shit. Everybody got those red ankle Reeboks. I don't know. They kind of went up to the ankle. They weren't basketball shoes, but they kind of wrapped around the ankle. The red Reeboks were everywhere when I was a kid.
Okay, so you remember? Yeah, I remember like Elijah ones. I don't know who put it out. Could have been a Reebok, but yeah, no, that was later. Elijah ones were maybe a little bit later.
Yeah.
No, maybe I've been around this time. But anyway, my point is, Adidas wasn't that big. They made Adidas.
Sure.
And again, Russell Simmons' idea to kind of put that one on the album. And then the fourth one is, it's a game changer in music, in my opinion, was Walk This Way.
I think so too.
Yeah, it's the first rock rap mashup. I think when you hear this, you can see where probably Kid Rock must have listened to this and liked it. Limp Bizkit, I'm thinking of these bands that kind of do rap and rock.
Linkin Park,
Linkin Park, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and also this is also the song that kind of crossed them over into like white middle class kids, in the suburbs. Everyone knew Aerosmith, and Aerosmith also 86. They're kind of on the decline a little bit, and this brings them back.
Sure. I remember I was in middle school when this came out, and it was the biggest thing in the world because in Texas we were running around and we were listening to all the stuff that was popular, Prince or Loverboy, or whatever the hell was happening in the 80s or whatever. But it's like, when this album came out, it was just, I remember the video was a big deal. And that's the thing too, is like a lot of times, you're not introduced to culture or race of people or a vibe of music unless, you see it on the stuff that you're watching, which is MTV or whatever. So if they bring it to you, then you see it. Otherwise, you don't know to seek it out. Now I feel like kids can seek out stuff a lot easier than before. Because when we were kids, it was whatever's on the radio. And then it became whatever's on MTV. And that was it. And that's how you got your information. And so this video was so cool because it kind of opened your mind to this new music that was being spliced in.
Heavy rotation too.
Heavy rotation and funny. And that's one thing about about Run-DMC. Hilarious, kind of tongue in cheek to the kind of make hip hop and rock and the thing. And it really added this energy to music that we'd never seen before.
And it was Rick Rubin. It was his idea to mash these two artists up.
Rick Rubin is just one of the greatest things ever happened to music. And, I was listening to a thing with him and he basically said, look, here's what happened with me and Russell Simmons. I said, hey, Russell, I have some great music ideas. And Russell was like, yeah, you're just a kid in college. I don't got time for you. He's like, how about this, Russell? How about I do everything and you just be my partner and put my name on the thing? And he was like, okay. And so Rick did everything. Far as musically, he did everything. But like you said with the Adidas stuff, Russell took it to the next level because you have to have those connects in order to make it in the music industry. And so, but Rick has an ear for music that's just it's phenomenal what he has done for so many people.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you said that because when you go down a couple of tracks and you go to the title track, Raising Hell.
Great song.
It's heavy. It's a heavy track.
Yeah, I wasn't that familiar with it. It's been a while since I've listened to them, and it was like great to hear certain songs you're not that familiar with because you heard them early on, and then you hear them now. You're like, oh, okay, this is great.
And the thing is, I liked the previous two albums too because I liked Rock Box. That was always one of my favorite songs. And then the second album, King of Rock, also real heavy. But on Raising Hell, that guitar, that's Rick Rubin playing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's playing a heavy guitar on there. This is kind of like hip hop almost becoming punk, for the time.
I
If
see where
you,
you're
you
going
know,
with
if you,
that.
if
I mean, yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. I mean,
you
a
kind of see
version
that,
of it, sure.
okay. But yeah, then we skipped over 2 tracks, and it was in the 6 track "Hit and Run," where just a couple things that stood out on this is it's Run beatboxing, and he does a good job beatboxing. And beatboxing is still a thing in '86, and that was the first time on a DMC record where you hear them drop a motherfucker. But if you listen to the whole album definitely sounds very, very period. If I just put this onto you and didn't even tell you who the artist is, and I said, Dustin, just tell me what era you think this came out in. You would definitely say this sounds 80s.
I disagree, man. I disagree
really
wholeheartedly on that. Yeah, I was listening to this a lot this weekend, and it's like, first of all, musically, it's really complex once you get past the rhymes and the hooks and all that. I mean, there's some really interesting music that's happening. And so I don't know. I mean, you would hear the rhymes and whatnot and be familiar with Run DMC, but if you're not familiar with Run DMC at all, I think it would hold up now. I really do, because it's such a fusion of music. I really feel like with the stuff that's happening with the guitar and the rap and the stuff, I don't know. I know what you're saying, because it's such a symbolic kind of, this band was such a symbolic part of the 80s, but I really feel it holds up. It doesn't date itself like a lot of like hair metal bands and stuff. For me personally, I mean, whatever, it's not, I just feel like it's more complex musically than I think people give it credit for.
It is. I mean, especially when I think the track "You Be Illing," because there's not a lot of rap tracks that I know of that use a saxophone in it, and
all kinds of music in this. Yeah,
and it's kind of inspired by Prince's Raspberry Beret. If you really like kind of like listen to it, at least that's what Run had said at one point. But I think like the use of the of the drum beat, the beat, the drum machine.
That's the only thing that I think makes it sound really 80s is the drum machine.
Well, that's a big thing. Yeah. I mean, it has
like, that's when you
such
start
a distinct sound.
Yeah. That's definitely what makes it sound that, but everything else I feel is, definitely the guitar and all that sounds, modern or
that
whatever.
Was always what made them stand out. Like this, like I said, this is their third record, and they kind of blended that rock and rap together. And that's what drew me to them. I love them. And then I thought, probably the song that I probably liked the least on the album was the second to last song, "Dumb Girl." It was really kind of it was a funny song, made fun of gold diggers and everything. It didn't really like. It didn't really stand out to me, but there's one thing I found out about it is at the time you had a young kid. He was 17 years old, and he goes uncredited, but he contributed lyrics to it, and that kid turned out to be LL Cool J.
Hey, you heard of him. Yeah.
He wound up doing okay for himself. and later on winds up having Rick Rubin produce Rock the Bells, the first LL Cool J, and then the second one, Knock You Out.
I mean, a song like that, that's what I was kind of the sense of humor thing, I feel like that song has a little bit of sense of humor and, with girls and stuff, but and that's what might date it a little bit of the album too, is some of the misogyny stuff. And it's funny when you watch stuff now, like watching, I remember I watched Purple Rain recently, and I'm like, whoa, you can do any of that now. Like like he throws her in a dumpster, like all this stuff. Like it's just all this like just a kind of a PC culture that we have now. But it's just such a fun album. It's really great when you listen to it from top to the end. Is really great because it flows nice, and the songs are a lot longer than I realized. And there's a lot of like instrumentals that are happening, which I was talking about earlier about the music being more complex. Where I didn't really notice that, because when you're a kid and all this is happening, and it's Run DMC, and the problem with music videos is music videos have ruined music for so long, because it's almost like when you watch a music video, and most of us did at this time, it's like you're concentrating more on the imagery and the story of the video and the stars in the video, and you lose a lot of the music aspect of it, of what's happening musically. And that's what's cool when you don't have a music video and you listen to something that maybe you listened to when you were a kid and you hear it now and you start to pick up on the things, you know.
Well, what I do with like all these albums, I'll listen to them while I'm at the gym. I'll listen to it like when like I'll park my car and I'm walking to a spot, you know, and I'm just like listening. I just want to see what catches my ear. What's the thing that keeps standing out to me about it, you know? And I'll listen to these albums a few times before we come on here and start talking about them. And like I said, the thing that stood out to me was the drum beats on the album. To me, it sounds very, very period. And I think the hits are the hits, man. They are, I mean, they're just not good. They're great. They're all-time great. You know, especially Walk This Way. It's all, I mean, we've heard it a million times, but it's something that I think changed music. I think that alone gets Run-DMC into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame over a lot of these other. Yeah, I mean,
it's such a good, you know, when Tyler comes in with the vocals and then Perry's with the guitar. I mean, it's just such a great fusion. And I love fusion. I feel like, you know, this band and this particular song kind of sums up who I am. You know, it's like I like a lot of different culture of things, and I think that's what this song brings. And I think it, you know, it's kind of like, you know, I feel like the Beastie Boys. I feel like Run-DMC is God. The Beastie Boys are Jesus, and Rick Rubin is the Holy Spirit, you know? And it's like this thing that kind of created this beautiful genre of music that's in and of itself, and other things have spawned from it. But this, you know, this band in particular, you know, really spawned a lot of different bands, and like you said, Kid Rock and those kind of things. And, you know, it's just really cool that, you know, they took a risk on this album. I feel like there's a lot of experimentation happening, and I love that in music.
You know what's pretty cool is I think on this album, and I think that not the EP, the first full length Beastie Boys album came out. No Sleep Till Brooklyn on it. Fight for Your Right for the Party. You know which one I'm talking about, right?
License to Ill, yeah.
License to Ill. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, I think I know they both toured together. I think it may have been supporting this album and License to Ill. You know, I remember they played Madison Square Garden. I mean, they were playing. I mean, that's how big. I mean, Run-DMC went from playing, you know, maybe 2,000 seat venues to co-headlining with the Beastie Boys playing Madison Square Garden. I mean, that's the jump up that this album did for them.
Well, that's the genius behind, you know, I feel like, and like you said, that what launched them was, you know, the Walk This Way video and stuff. And I feel like, you know, that just really popped them and just made him a household name. And hip hop became popular after that. And then there were bands like Tone Loc and Young MC and, you know, and all this stuff kind of this, you know, it started being more mainstream, and, you know, white kids were kind of getting into different kind of music, and it wasn't, you know, so it was a good time for people in music. And, you know, just like, God forbid, you know, we just kind of attach ourselves to something different that we're not familiar with. And it made me want to be in New York. I remember, you know, Run-DMC was very,
when this came out, you were still in Texas?
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. It was junior high, dude. I grew up in Texas, man. Yeah. I've only lived in New York since, you know, late 20s. But yeah, so I'm in Texas.
Hey, listen, I'm sorry. I missed the A&E biography about Dustin Chafin.
I've only spent like, you know, 9 car rides with you. Going to shitty firehouses. You know, stuff. And I was a kid in Texas. I was a kid. You would know if I was a kid in New York. I wasn't a kid in New York riding the subway when I was 12. I was in Texas. I came to New York, then did comedy. I wasn't like doing stand-up in the 8th grade. Anyway, I love you.
But when you were a kid in Texas, did you go out and buy these albums? Like you went to record stores in it? And
I mean, it's like Camelot Music was a big one. That was a big record store that they had in the mall, and I mean, Tower Records, that was all here. I mean, when I was in college, it was Tower Records, but when I was a kid, it was like these whatever's in the mall. Like, you know, there was like a couple different chains that they had, and then my favorite was I still owe them money. The biggest hack joke ever, the Columbia House Records.
Oh, sure. Those are the best.
You would, you know, you would literally tape a penny to a postcard thing and then put it in the mail. And then you would just get 10 free records, and you're supposed to pay for them. Nobody ever did. Nobody ever paid for them.
But how great was it when you got that box when it was delivered to your house?
It's phenomenal.
And you got like 10 albums. Like it was like so stimulus overload. I was excited.
So exciting. Yeah, and that was, music was exciting. The 80s and the late 70s and 80s, mostly, it was
80s was
just
great for
it
music.
was a lot of fun. It was like music was fun again, and I feel like, and this band was one of those bands that kind of like, just really just opened it up and made it exciting. So it was so cool.
Absolutely.
And they were huge celebrities too. They were everywhere, and it's like it was fun to see that. And one of the moments that I have is when I was in New York. I did a show for the Troops. It was Fleet Week in New York City, and it was probably about 10 years ago, maybe a little further out than that, maybe 11 or 10 or 11. And they were having a USO show, and they had the Washington Redskin cheerleaders, and then they had a musical act who was Daryl DMC. Run wasn't with him, but it was Daryl by himself, and he was performing. He did like 8 songs by himself, and he had DJ. It wasn't Jay, but he had a DJ guy, and he did the songs, and it was really bizarre to see him. And I was the comedian, and so it was me, Jay, and then these cheerleaders were running around and stuff, and it was in Webster Hall. And it was the middle of the day. Ed Koch was there for like some weird reason. And it was, he hadn't been mayor in years. He was just randomly there. And it was just like this, kind of tribute to the Troops. So I got to hang out with Daryl. And so we were kind of in the green room together. And, I was like, dude, I'm a huge fan, whatever. And I have pictures. I'll send a picture so we can put it up with this. But it was like, we got to hang out, and I got to, he's like, out there doing Proud Mary and all this stuff. And it was so cool. It's like he, just kind of did it by himself, which was, it felt a little off because it was like, you really need Run, but he did a good job. But
did he have another guy up there with him?
No, he's by himself. He was just kind of like, I'm DMC, and we're going to do this. And he just did his thing. And it was cool. He was right. He was doing the same songs. It was just by himself,
What a weird show. Like you just DMC, Ed Koch, and the Washington Redskins cheerleaders.
You got to think about the military. A lot of dudes. So it's kind of perfect.
I kind of get
Ed Koch was just saying, God bless the troops. He wasn't doing time. He was just like, God bless the troops.
I was gonna say, I get the cheerleaders. I can see the comedian. Yeah, but what's that Koch doing there?
He's just saying, God bless the troops.
How am I doing?
I think they had a guy from The Sopranos there too. They just had like random people just being like, we love the troops. It was, that's all it was. It was during, we were in Afghanistan heavy in the beginning and all that. So it was just, it was that kind of thing. It was just more of a troops. I've done a lot of weird shows. Every USO show I've ever done, I mean, it's been like just kind of bizarre shows. I did one with Bruce Campbell from Evil Dead, and he's just, he's just there, just being Bruce Campbell. And he'll sign shit, and he'll like talk to the troops. It's like, it's not a show. Like they'll have a comic, they'll have a band, and then they'll have a dude that's just kind of interacting with the troops. And the cheerleaders are kind of like taking pictures and kind of dancing during the music. And and then Ed Koch is just coming in support the troops. So you always have a guy that's like, hey, it's like, we love you. It's like celebrity, celebrity stuff. It's not, they're not performing or anything. But so anyway, that's kind of all what that was. But it was great, just being able to like get some cool pictures and hang out with Daryl. And so, I feel like it was, hip hop royalty, so it was fun.
That's hip hop royalty.
So it was great. Yeah, that was my big DMC story. I wish I had a Run DMC story, but I have a DMC story.
Listen, you hold on, and maybe in the future,
I might just get a Run story. I'll take a Run, then I could just combine the two stories, and then I got the band.
And you knew that that Run is Daryl Simmons' brother, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. It's just for people who may not know that.
No. I did a little research. I looked up.
You're okay, Dustin. Okay.
I try, man. I don't do as much as you. But I try to do a little bit. I can't retain as much as you.
This is all I bring to the table.
I did a lot more drugs than you did. So my brain doesn't hold too much in there.
But anyway, that's my review of.
Is Adam? Are you a Run DMC fan? Adam went to Papa John's.
Maybe he went to the bathroom. I was looking at some of these for this week coming up, November 20th.
Yes.
Some new music that's coming out.
You got? Talk to me.
Nothing really big. It's the following week, where it's bigger, because this week you're going to have Dave Mason. Remember Dave Mason, original member, I believe, of Fleetwood Mac?
Oh, okay.
And I'm a big fan.
You're not a fan of Fleetwood Mac, right?
No, I'm not. You have a reissue though. You would be surprised. I like this artist, but I was always a big Jewel fan.
Okay, so we're gonna have to end the show. All right, everybody.
Come on, come on.
Hey, you don't like Fleetwood Mac, but you like Jewel? Come on,
yes,
man. How do you make that jump? How do you make that jump? Fleetwood Mac is amazing. They've changed music too, man. They did a lot of stuff for music and like formed a kind of a genre. I mean, Stevie Nicks is a badass, bro. I'm sorry, she's a badass. Y'all put her up against any dude singer ever. She's a badass. She's a rock star, man.
I like 2 songs by Fleetwood Mac.
That's it. Well, that's 2 songs.
I like
how hard it is to get people to like 2 songs.
I didn't say they suck.
I like 2 U2 songs. Like sometimes that's what it is. Yeah, not a big. See, you're not a big fan of. I'm not a huge fan of U2. I was, and then I got just burnt out. I got burned out. There's a lot of bands. Don't you feel that way? Where it's like that's what was great about just getting a new album or whatever. With AC/DC, it's like it's something new from them. But I feel like a lot of times, there's a lot of artists that you listen to, and it's just, you've heard it so many times, it kind of burns you out a little bit. Like I love Guns N' Roses, but every time I hear Sweet Child of Mine, there's 2 reactions. One is like, oh shit, not this again. And the other's like, oh, this is a good song. But it depends what mood I'm in. Because if I can be in a mood that's
like, is there any need to play that song anymore?
What song?
Sweet Child of Mine or what? Like FM radio, there's no need to play that song. Like you can maybe try playing Rocket Queen. Maybe I think that's what kills
Mr. Brownstone. Like there's there's so many great songs.
Yeah, how about playing that instead of hearing the Welcome to the Jungle and Sweet Child of Mine for 1,000 times on FM radio? That's what killed FM radio.
Yeah, I mean it's just really it's too much sometimes, but. So that's what U2 was for me. It was like they were a band that I got into, and October, Boy, Unforgettable Fire, and then it was like then they exploded, and then it was like they just played them nonstop. And if I go to Rite Aid right now and to pick up some milk, they'll be playing U2. You know what I mean? Like they're just everywhere.
I saw them a couple of years ago with a comic friend of ours, Alan Fuchs. We went to go see them. They were on the Joshua Tree tour, and they were doing.
Well, they were just doing the whole album, right?
Yeah, right. But it was great. They opened up with Sunday Bloody Sunday. They opened up with a couple, 3 hits. Then they go to on a smaller stage. Then they go over to the main stage and do Joshua Tree from beginning to end, and it is a great album to hear from beginning to end. And then they come back.
It was for me, not anymore, but yeah, it was when it came out.
The reasons mentioned. And then they came out and they started doing they did what was this standout song for me? Elevation. Elevation was great live. Yeah, it's like so they still do it for me. I still love.
They're a good band. One thing that I had a good time doing while I was on the road, I drove from New York to Columbus, Ohio. It's about an 8-hour drive. And it's a little time in the car. And so what I decided to do, I was like, you know what? I'm going to pick an artist and I'm going to try to listen to, their albums chronologically and just kind of get it was a really cool thing. So I picked Led Zeppelin and it was interesting. It was interesting to, and I got through almost all of them and it was a lot of fun. Really? Like just kind of, just absorbing each album and, from the first album to the second to the third, it was really cool to kind of like see the progression of kind of how they moved away from this, just complete bluesy sound to this other thing that was kind of their own. And it was cool, man. It was definitely something I recommend. And I'm going to try to do more of that, which, if you get a chance, I think it's a cool thing to do to get the evolution of the artist,
That's a great idea. Yeah. When you go, you're right. When you, especially with Zeppelin, when you hear from the beginning, like the first album with Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, right? Which is one of my old, to the last real album with In Through the Outdoor in the evening, and how much different the sound really was.
You're right. There's one album that I wasn't that familiar with. Presence, yeah. And that is a great album. And it was like the songs are like 6 minutes long and they're just
had Achilles' Last Stand. That was like
I wasn't familiar with it at all, to be honest with you. And I was like, and it was so cool that if I hadn't done this, I wouldn't have found it. And it was great. It was one of my favorites. And I enjoyed all the hits and all the great music. And, that was my first band that I saw. My mom took me to Led Zeppelin when I was 7. And
Jesus
so
Christ.
that was my first concert. So, I have this kind of, Led Zeppelin, night, kind of rock and roll thing. But it's, but yeah, so yeah, but that album I wasn't that familiar with. And so it was so cool to hear a lot of, just a lot of musical riffs on that, drums and just guitar solos and stuff. It was really cool. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me and you, we missed a lot of it, but remember we had a chance to see Jason Bonham.
Yeah, that was cool. Peter Frampton. Yeah, that was a great show.
But remember, they ended, I think, with Stairway, and that was
I think we got there right. Last two Led Zeppelin songs.
Last two. I think they were doing Black Dog when we walked in, and then they closed with. They were like, "That's it." Yeah,
that was cool.
That was probably my fault too, because I got the time mixed up.
It happens. It happens. No, it was fun, and that was that was cool. Like, you introduced me a little, like, Peter Frampton is kind of one of those guys that
he was great.
Yeah, but what I was going to say was, he's one of those guys that, like, a little before my time, in the sense of when I was able to kind of like purchase music and like go out and buy it myself. And so it's like, but he was a guy that was always around, and he was always popular, and people always talked about him and stuff. And so, but to see him live and never really seeing him live, and just to realize how amazing guitarist he was.
Oh,
and that's
my God.
one thing that I picked up on. It was how great a guitarist he was. And, it was, and he went into this blues thing, and I ended up buying my father-in-law. He's a big vinyl guy and a blues guy. So I bought him, Peter Frampton's blues album that he had released that year at the concert. And I bought it at the concert, but it's such a great album. It just all blues songs, like old classic blues stuff. And he can shred on guitar. He's so good.
You remember what he did? He did a great version of "While My Guitar Gently Weeps."
Oh, so good.
Which is
he did like some Soundgarden and stuff too. He did some like.
Oh, he did. Yeah, you're right. Oh, that's right. He started off like with a nice long solo, and then went into Black Hole Sun.
Yeah, so cool, cool. So yeah, and that's the thing too. It's like sometimes it takes seeing a band live to really realize how good they are, or see an artist live. Because you really get a sense of them. It's the thing is, like, when people always shit on bands and stuff, like sometimes like people shit on Dave Matthews Band. Like, that's a big, there's certain bands like Nickelback, Dave Matthews Band. People like to shit on these bands. And, someone took me to Dave Matthews Band, and it was, it was kind of one of those things I wouldn't have gone otherwise if someone had taken me. But they're amazing. And it's like, maybe they have some cheesy hits that maybe all the college kids at the time liked or whatever. But I mean, they're pulling out a fiddle, and he's just doing Watchtower. And it's like, they're great musicians. You can't take that away from them, whether you like what they're doing or, if you feel like they're, kind of their audience is a bunch of dummies or whatever. I feel like the band is great. So anyway, it's a band that I never would have appreciated if I hadn't seen them live. And then when you see them live, you're like, these fuckers can play. I don't care what you say, And so that's kind of one of those bands that, I feel like seeing live made a difference in how I viewed them. Because otherwise I'd be like, it's, whatever, that band. And then it's kind of, anyway, such a good band.
I worked a few shows with them, and musically, musician-wise, they're great. They're like up there with Fish as being like
they can get down, man.
But I could never like put them on in my car while I was driving.
I'm sure, I'm hoping they have like a B-side kind of list of songs that I've never heard of, but I bet are good. It's just those 3 songs that everybody plays you're probably tired of. But I bet there's some good songs.
I could any band, I could find like a couple of songs. You're right about that. I could.
Man, that's most bands, isn't it? I mean, I don't know. We don't always like every song. But
I mean, I could find something. I can find something that I go, okay.
Really? Yeah, I don't understand the hate on Dave Matthews. I really don't. I don't
think it's not for me. I don't like jam bands. Did you like the Grateful Dead?
I can listen to it and enjoy. I'm more of an Allman Brothers guy, which is a jam band. But that's a jam band. That's a jam band. It is a jam band. You can't say it's not a jam band.
The different level.
It doesn't matter. It's still a jam band. I mean, they're the Southern Beatles, but it's still a jam band. I mean, their songs are like 9 minutes.
Yeah, there's something about the way like Dickie Betts and Dwayne Allman, and then later on,
still a jam band.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Trust me, I saw them. I saw them every year. In March, I would go to the Beacon. I saw them six
the
times,
Beacon.
and it was like, there's
it's a regret
trucks
of mine.
and all kinds of. It was beautiful, but they would jam out, and everybody smoke weed, and they'd jam a song for like 15 minutes.
Did you see them like near the end when they had Derek Trucks in the band?
I did. That was great. Yeah.
God.
He was great. It was when he was young as hell, man. Like, he had just come out. Like, so yeah, he was phenomenal to watch him kind of just start playing like that with those guys. Yeah, it was great. I also saw him with the band. Yeah, he was. I saw them with Willie Nelson. Him and his wife, I guess, have a band. That was great.
Speaking of Willie Nelson, I heard a beautiful version. You know the song "Rainbow Connection"?
I think so. Yeah.
It was from like a Muppets movie.
Oh yeah.
Written by Paul Williams, but I heard Willie Nelson do it, and he has that.
It's on a commercial, I think, right now.
It's a nice little country twang to it. I think that's why I heard. I was like, is that Willie Nelson? So I went and I looked it up and I started listening to it. I was like, man, fucking Willie Nelson.
Oh, well, he's great. I saw Willie. I've seen him live like 4 times. He's so good every time. He's such a great musician, such a cool dude, and like a great spirit about him. And he's such a good songwriter. Like, he wrote a lot of great songs. Like, he wrote Crazy for Patsy Cline's biggest hit. It's like, he wrote a bunch of stuff, and, it's like he's so good. He's another one that's still jamming in his 80s, and he still sounds great. Seen him in concert recently, and he's still plucking the guitar, doing a solo. His son is really good too. His son's very talented. And his son's great blues guitarist.
Okay. But, so just 2 things.
Yes.
November 27th. Okay, that's the day after Thanksgiving. Two major releases. Okay. New Miley Cyrus music coming out. Plastic Hearts. Okay, I know you're a big Miley Cyrus fan. Party in the USA, Dustin. And Smashing Pumpkins.
Smashing Pumpkins, I like. That's a cool band. But I don't know about Miley Cyrus. I don't know if we're allowed to say Miley Cyrus on the show. But you're a fan, so you like Jewel, so I'll let you slide.
What? Listen,
Miley Cyrus. Come on, dude. What's wrong with you?
It's a major release, and listen.
Are you buying that album? You're not buying that album.
Absolutely not. Are you crazy?
Okay, all right.
Listen,
a little bit. I am a little crazy. Yeah.
There may be someone who will listen to this and say, "Oh, listen, these guys never bring up Miley Cyrus."
Yeah, I don't think anybody's doing that ever.
I think you could be right about that. I don't know.
Smashing Pumpkins, that's exciting. That's a band. I told you before, I missed a lot of the grunge stuff. So, but that's one of the bands that I kind of seeked out when I missed the boat. And Stone Temple Pilots and Smashing Pumpkins are probably my favorite of that. That group of music. And I bet that's a great album. I'm very excited for a new.
Yeah,
Smashing
James
Pumpkins.
is back in the band. He's the original rhythm guitarist. So
it's great, and such good lyrics, man. Fucking Pumpkins, man. Right out of cage, like just good lyrics, man. Lyrically, I really love the Pumpkins.
Yeah, they have one of my favorite songs off of Melancholy and the Infinite Sorrow. I love the opening track, Tonight. It built up such a great crescendo. I did one of these wormholes where I probably spent about 2 hours just listening to every version of that song I could find. They do a great version. They did it on the MTV Music Awards with an orchestra behind them. It sounded so good. And then if you ever watch the video of it, it's a takeoff on one of the first movies ever made called A Trip to the Moon. It's that cheesy young man in the moon face.
Very cool.
Yeah, so the whole video.
I'm not a big fan of the orchestra behind a rock band, but I'll give it a chance.
How would I know that?
We talked about it. I talked about Metallica. We talked about it last week.
You didn't like that?
I'm just not a fan of it. I just it's a weird thing. It's not. I mean, it's like whatever. I just feel like I love classical music. I just kind of that's one fusion that I'm not quite on board with yet.
See, I like the depth that it brings to it. And the first time I ever heard that was Elton John had an album out called Live from Australia.
That makes a little more sense. He's playing a piano. That's a little more than electric guitar. Is a little different for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not my favorite thing in the world, but I don't hate it, especially the way when they do it with Metallica. Again, I think it brings something to it.
Have you seen the Steve Vai? He's done that. It's pretty interesting.
No, I saw 2 recently. I saw Joey Tempest of Europe. doing it with a big band behind him, and
wow.
What's his name? Tommy Shaw from Styx, with, having a big orchestra behind him. I thought it made the song sound great. Like
Styx makes sense, they're kind of a big band. Like Chicago would make sense. There's certain bands that make sense because they have those kind of elements in their music. But I don't know, when you take like I don't know, because Metallica to me is kind of a grunge rock kind of punk band, and then metal, speed metal stuff. And then you just get to the orchestra. I don't know. Like, that's another thing I had an argument about with the AC/DC was somebody was saying, yeah, they don't have, they don't have any ballads. And I was like, yeah, that's what I like about AC/DC. No freaking ballads and no orchestra music. They just do straight rock and roll.
Well,
they don't need the Philharmonic. They just need Angus and a little schoolboy outfit, and he's still wearing it, by the way. And they're just rocking. He's got a Depends in there, but he's still wearing it.
I don't think you go to an AC, right? You can't see like AC/DC fans like, now we're going to do our love song, and they're not going to do Every Rose Has Its Thorn. That is not an AC/DC.
That's what I love about it. And they're not going to have an orchestra. All right.
No, could you ever see Motorhead? We're going to slow it down. There'd be a riot if they had those words.
They have some covers that are a little slower, but yeah, they definitely, their covers are kind of funny. They've done it, but yeah, they definitely didn't slow down. That's another one. That was the second one I tried to do was all the Motorhead in chronological, and I'm about halfway through. So
what made you go with Led Zeppelin of all the bands? That's a little surprising for me to hear you say that.
My first concert was Led Zeppelin. Why would that be surprising? We've talked about Zeppelin for hours, you and I. Why would that surprise you? I wear Zeppelin shirts. I love Led Zeppelin. Why would that surprise you?
Just seems so random.
Why does it seem random? I'm a rock and roll guy.
Yeah, you are a rock and roll guy.
Why wouldn't I like Led Zeppelin? How's that random?
I can see, let's say, what? Let me hear some Stones, playing some Stones.
I don't like the Stones. That's one thing I'll say it right now. The first Rolling Stone album, I could not get through it. I hate it. It's horrible. I couldn't get through it. I couldn't get 6 songs in. It sounds like everything else that happened in the 60s. It's a hack album. I couldn't take it. It sounds doo-woppy. It sounds.
My head's gonna explode. You don't like
the first Rolling Stones album you like? I don't think it's good.
I'm talking about that catalog.
I'm talking about the first album, the Rolling Stones album. It's not the Rolling Stones that you're talking about.
Okay, you can say that about a lot of bands too.
No, I didn't say that about Led Zeppelin. Out of the gate, they sounded amazing.
Zeppelin off the bat is off the charts great. You also
Motorhead sounded great. There's a lot of bands that sound great off the top.
I'll give you one of my all-time favorite bands. I love Pink Floyd.
Come on, man.
Cars' first album is a great hits album. It's great. First 2 Cars albums is great, but Pink Floyd, the first album, it's the only album that has Syd Barrett on it, by the way, is completely different. They don't hit their stride. They come out with about 3-4 albums before they came out with Dark Side of the Moon. And
the thing is with Pink Floyd, though,
becomes amazing.
Yeah, but at least it's their own sound. The problem I had with the first
one, the sound changed.
It did sound, but it's still them. Like, you still feel
now like you hear the first album, Dustin. Listen to the
I've heard it. I'll hear it again, but but you still, it has a distinctive sound that's different. What I had a problem with the Rolling Stones, it just sounded like everything else. I feel like they just ripped off every black artist that they were listening to at the time. That's what it felt like. It felt like the first Rolling Stones album. It felt like that.
Let me throw a song. Do you like the song Wild Horses?
I used to.
Nice.
It's pretty good.
Tune.
I love it. I know the song. It's all right. I used to love it, and now I'm it's one of those I've heard a lot, so I'm not that.
Do you have a favorite Rolling Stone song?
Brown Sugar, probably. I have quite a few, I guess, but Start Me Up is good. That's the later stuff. I like a lot of Rolling Stones. I love the Stones as a band. It's the same reason I like Bruce Springsteen as a musician, but I'm not I've seen them live. I saw them on the Steel Wheels tour. Living Colour opened up for them. I say, I've been around some Stones. It was kind of one of those things where I just didn't enjoy the first album like I wanted to. That's all. I felt like when in the Led Zeppelin one, I couldn't wait to get to the next one. Whereas I feel like with the Stones, it was kind of like, I could tell that they were finding where the Beatles were out of the gate, found it. Whereas I feel the Stones, it took them a little time to get that thing going. And I feel like, you're probably right about Pink Floyd as well, but I feel like, I just didn't expect that from the Stones. I kind of felt like I knew more about the Stones than I did. And then when I heard the first album, I was like, okay, it comes a little later, I feel. They really get their groove later.
Yeah, I think with Floyd is one, Sid leaves the band, and then two, David Gilmour comes into the band because he's not on the first album, and that changes the whole dynamic of it.
Yeah,
and especially songwriting between Roger Waters and Gilmour.
Rolling Stones is one of the greatest bands of all time. I was just saying when it was like just but listening to chronological stuff, it's like you just start to see the bands kind of evolve, and it's like that first album, it surprised me. That's all. It's just like I wasn't locked in. Whereas like Zeppelin was locked in. I was like, oh, it's like it all made sense. Like, oh God, I mean, that's why this band exploded when they did. Whereas I feel the Stones had to, what is it? Probably the second album they really hit. I don't know. I
think there was. I'm going to say like probably by the third album. I'm trying. God, I'm not in the Stones' head right now. I'm
that's the thing album. With the Run-DMC. This is their third album, so sometimes it takes, it takes some time. And
I think this becomes their classic. This is their masterpiece. But I think the first album you could hear that they were going to be great. Again, Rockbox was off the charts, great.
Yeah, but this album is it's put together so well. It has all the elements that you want, and a kind of every song kind of popping, and it's so much fun. So, Run-DMC, baby.
And next week we're going back to classic rock.
Okay, all right, hit me up. All right, everybody, this has been our show. Little tiny Elvis says hello. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Is Adam back?
What's up?
Did Adam finally get back?
Yeah, Adam left. Here. Adam went to. Yeah, we were trying to bring you in earlier about Run-DMC, and I said you went to Papa John's.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know too much about Run-DMC other than Walk This Way.
Beastie Boys.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's where it came from. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to our show, watching our show, and please leave comments and spread the word. We could use some love on this show. And if you have a favorite album you'd like us to cover, hit us in the comments and let us know. We'd love to dissect any albums that are your favorites. And thanks you for watching the show. Dustin's Vinyl. I'm Dustin Chafin. That is Jeffrey Paul. Thank you, everybody.
So long, everyone.
So long. So long.